gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
It's better than cocaine. Take it all in.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight on Physical Media Coast to Coast. Tonight I have a special guest. You know him, you love him, the man, the myth, the legend, Matt McCarthy is here with us tonight.
Greetings.
Hey man, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So like I said, I don't typically have a set agenda. We kind of just roll with the flow, talk about physical media, movies. I want to talk a little about your career and your stand-up show that you have coming up tomorrow night, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to be at the Elysian Theater in the what is it? Was it the swine room? The whatever the small room is. But I'm doing the Video Movie Club live, where I'm going to be showing. Last time I did highlights of my favorite clips from videotapes that I found. This weekend I want to just see how it goes, just focusing on one videotape that I found, because it's so dense with material that I was like, it's kind of the thing, because I do a tape a day on TikTok, and I'm like, man, it's like there's so much good stuff on the tape, and it's like, I try to keep the videos to less than 10 minutes.
Yeah. Go ahead and explain what you do on TikTok, because I've actually known about you previously before I found you on TikTok, and then I saw you. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. He looks familiar to me. And I love what you do on TikTok with old VHS tapes and beta tapes as well. Do you want to just talk about what you do on TikTok in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a lot of people during the lockdown, during the pandemic, I was like, well, I guess I'll go on TikTok and see what's going on there. And I was like, because I have a background, like you said, I do stand up, and I'm an actor and sketch performer and a writer and improviser and all that stuff. And I was like, the idea of doing a one-person sketch like every day on TikTok sounded so exhausting and unappealing. I was like, what's the easiest thing I can do, but I will still find it interesting to do it? And then I just looked around my office. I was like, well, I've got this gigantic movie collection that I've accumulated over the years. I was like, let's just pull things off the shelf and talk about that stuff. And one of my favorite things to do is find, used blank tapes, stuff that people taped off TV, and just to see what, I mean, it's pure curiosity. I'm just like, I see a videotape and I'm like, I wonder what's on that tape.
Yeah.
Like, I understand what the label says, but what else is on the tape? What's really
on it? What's really on it? Yeah. And so how do you find your tapes? I'm sure, I mean, I don't think you're breaking into people's homes, stealing their tapes. So
not yet.
How are you finding them?
Not yet. I mean, a lot of them are mine from growing up. Well, not a lot of them anymore, because I've accumulated such a large collection. Really, I get a lot of donations. People will send them to me. Cool. Friends, like the video I'm posting right now, a friend found literally just a stack of 6 VHS tapes on the sidewalk in Ventura, California.
Oh, wow.
And was like, oh, I got to hold on to these for McCarthy. And then when we went to see wrestling on Saturday, he was like, oh, come to my car. I got some tapes for you. And it's great stuff. It's old AMC hosted by Bob Dorian.
Ooh, nice.
And then it goes into like a Channel 5 edited for TV, Rocky 2 with the commercials. And then about 15 minutes of Elvira hosting like the Chamber of Horror, or the something of, it's terrible. There's no there's nothing. I mean, even for a movie hosted by Elvira, it is so boring and dull. It's hilarious.
That's funny. Yeah. I love your videos. But one video that I keep crossing my fingers that you'll just come upon is a old Siskel and Ebert episode.
You never know. I mean, it's funny. Me and my buddy Johnny Osborne, we talked about. I was like, I don't know when I would have the time to do it, because I'm already, I'm a dad. I'm pursuing my career. I'm doing the videotapes, and I had my wrestling podcast. We watch wrestling, but we were like, we kept talking about it would be so funny to do a show where we reviewed old episodes of Siskel and Ebert.
That would be fun.
You know,
I
just
know
like-
on YouTube, I guess people digitize old episodes of Siskel and Ebert and they put it on YouTube. And so you can go on YouTube and find old episodes. It talk about bringing you back to the day of, in the 80s and 90s, back with Siskel and Ebert.
It's also fun to see when they are completely off the mark.
Right.
Because what really did it was, and it became an inside joke between me and Johnny. He was like, look at this review Roger Ebert does for Predator. Of course, they both hate it. They hate Predator. It's like the perfect action movie. They both hate it. And Ebert goes, well, like when it's his turn to talk, after Gene has, just taken a dump all over it, Roger just goes, I mean, it's like Rambo meets Aliens. And I'm like, yeah.
That sounds awesome to me.
That sounds awesome. I guarantee that's how they pitched the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Walked into a room and said it's Rambo meets Aliens.
Right.
And then they were like, here's $30 million. Make it as fast as you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hilarious. I think and then it's even funnier when they crap all over the movie. And then you see later on, a few years later on, when the movie becomes popular and they change their opinion all of a sudden on the movie, where they actually like it now after he's become so popular.
Right. That's always great. Have you seen the new trailer for Megapolis?
I did with the fake taglines.
Well, he does that with
fake quotes.
It's like, yeah, it's all the reviews of like Godfather's the worst movie I ever saw.
Yeah.
Whatever which is an odd approach to take, where you're like, everybody's going to think they hate this movie, but
Right.
it's actually a classic.
Right. What's funny is I went on my Twitter, I guess they call it X now, and I was like, what a way to even alienate people even more from the movie by putting. I said, do they think studios? This isn't going to work good of studios wanting to help promote this movie if they're just critics, if they're just showing critics quotes dumping on us all those other movies. Like, what a way to win them over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out, well, it was AI. I guess they said today it was AI generated.
I hadn't heard that. That's even hilariouser.
Coppola even, I guess Coppola even said that he didn't even know about it. Who knows how truthful that is? But
it's a self-financed movie. He's the only one involved.
Right. Right. I can't wait to see it though. It looks incredible.
I'm honestly, even as like down period, I'm like, even the movies when it's done, I'm like, no, I'm still interested. It's like it's Francis Coppola. I'm like, I'll watch it.
Right. Did you see Horizon? Costner's Horizon?
No. How was that?
It was awesome. I loved it.
Really?
I loved it. It really brought me back to old-fashioned filmmaking, like back in the 80s and 90s, like Unforgiven. Movies like that where they actually went out and actually filmed in real world and not in a volume or not on green screen. And you can really tell that Costner just poured his heart and soul into this movie. I mean, it is gorgeous. First of all, the cinematography is just gorgeous to look at. And what I liked about it too is that he's the director, the star. And usually when the director is a star, they try to put themselves in the lead role and as much screen time as possible, right? He didn't do this, at least with part one, he didn't do that. He really wasn't in it a whole lot until I think halfway through the movie. Then you started to see him more and more. But I like that he wasn't just constantly having screen time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I mean, I guess he's got to put his face on the poster because you figure that's how you sell it.
That's how you sell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really good. I can't wait to catch it on when it comes out on 4K in September.
Oh,
definitely
great.
highly worth watching. I loved it. And what's cool is at the ending they have a 5-minute montage of what to expect of part two.
Okay.
Really cool how they do it. And
it reminds me of when I saw Back to the Future 2 and they had the scenes from part 3.
Yeah, I remember watching that. My dad rented that and on video, and we're watching that. And we're like, well, what's this? What's going on here? And we're like, oh, this must be for part 3. So
I mean,
it's-
that is a divisive movie. I love Back to the Future Part 3. I absolutely love it.
oh, it's great. I thought it was great. I always liked it. Um,
Because
part
that's
two,
the idea, is like it's you're taking, because the first one, it's a perfect time travel movie, because it's
right.
like he goes back in time and now he's stuck and he's got to figure out how to get back. So now you up the stakes. Now it's so far back, there's no resources to get it going.
Yeah,
And it's the
exactly.
two of them together. And it's a great Western. It's a front to back perfect Western too, on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I loved it. I remember when part two came out, and everyone was like, "This is just one big hour and a half commercial for part three." I'm like, "Well, how else do you get to part three unless you have part two showing what happens to go to part three?" But
Yeah, it's interesting. My Joe DeRosa, my friend, he does We'll See You in Hell. He was like, they should have done what they did in part three for part two, and then part three being, now you've gone back to 1955 and you're referencing the first one heavily again, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Return of the Disc is here. Hey, man, thanks for joining us. It says, that should be Rambo 6. Haha. Have it go full circle against Predator. Right. Rambo 6.
That'd be amazing.
I'm up for that anytime.
Dude, are you kidding me? Rambo versus Predator?
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
And then you throw Schwarzenegger in it. That'd be even better. It's like,
he's going to be making movies till the day he drops dead now. So, I mean, might as well.
Right. If you don't mind indulging me here, I don't know if you got this from Kino Lorber, but it was Andrei Shazowski's Nostalgia. Have you ever seen that?
No, what is that?
I've never seen it before, but I've always heard that it's like just a beautifully stunning film. I think it is. I don't remember what language. It's Italian and Russian. And so they sent this to me, and I did a comparison against the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just give the people out there, even yourself, a little sneak preview of what to expect in that video, because it is insane what they did with this restoration work. So doing my research, when I first saw this, how the Blu-ray's black and white and the 4K has a little bit of color in there, I was thinking to myself, well, is that how it was supposed to look? And I found out that actually, when they did the HD scan, I guess they used a black and white filter to go solid black and white. And what happened was, originally they printed they printed it on color film. And so there was always supposed to be like a slight hint of color within the black and white. So they've gone back to that. And this is a shot too. I mean, it's just a 9-day difference here.
Wow.
Well, let me see. Let me find one that's even better here. So that's near the end of the film. And you can see how that's that ivory green with the statue compared to the black and white. It's incredible what they've done with this restoration work. So that is going to be up on my channel, I think next week. Next week, I'm going to have it up on my channel. And it's just incredible, because a lot of times, when we've watched a movie for years on VHS, DVD, Laserdisc, Blu-ray, that's what we're used to of the way it looked. And then when you see it on 4K, you're like, well, is this accurate? And I've noticed a lot of people have this knee-jerk reaction saying that the transfer sucks or it's bad because it doesn't look the way they're used to of it looking. And one thing that I noticed is that there seems to always be like a slight magenta or reddish hue or green or tealish hue over the previous image of previous releases on DVD or Blu-ray. And I was talking to a colorist friend of mine. I was asking him about that, and he said, well, that's typically because, back in the 80s and the 90s, in the early 2000s, what TVs did we have, right? CRT TVs. And so they would have to add those different tints or hues over the image in order to help warm up the image quality to look better on CRT TVs. And he said now with all the bells and whistles of 4K, they don't no longer have to do that. And so a lot of times they bring in the DP or the director to help ensure color correctness now with the 4K. And so it's just crazy how different some of these movies look, restored. Who knows for sure if that's exactly how it looked in the theater, but it's as close as possible to the filmmaker's vision of how he intended.
Yeah, I always wonder that when it's, especially because because the 4Ks of black and white movies are just spectacular.
Yeah.
And it's like, we just did a scan from the 35 millimeter print, blah, blah, blah. And I'd love to know what, again, like you said, what did this look like in the theater in 1945, 1950, whatever, especially like then once you get into the Technicolor, it's it's just dripping off the screen with colors.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Because that's what I love about laser discs, because you still have that. Because the only thing I'm not like, I'm such a 4K head. I absolutely love the way that they look and they sound and just the feel of it. But the thing with Blu-ray was they were always too clean. Like when we watched the 4K of Labyrinth, my wife was like, she couldn't, like the grain. She was like, "This looks terrible." I'm like, "This looks amazing." But that's what I always love about Laserdisc is those scratches and the cigarette burns, and like once in a while you get like an errant hair on the side if you're lucky. I'm like, that's just spectacular. Because I like I was saying, like with the VHS tapes, things taped off late night TV and just some random movie. It's like, who knows what kind of quality the print is going to be, and it's just fascinating seeing what was presented on television to people.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's interesting. I mean, I know growing up in the 80s and the 90s, and I had some friends that worked in like home media or home video. And that's one thing I learned early on back in the 90s when I was a teenager, is that studios would go in and tweak the color grading and change the color grading to work better for home viewing for CRT TVs, because you just can't reproduce the same colors as as you see in the theater on CRT TVs. There's so much limitation there. And but yeah, like you said, I mean, all that, like the hairs and the scratches, and that's one thing with 4K. I mean, they look spectacular, but they do clean up, as I say in my videos, any unwanted anomalies from the negative sitting in storage. But if it's done right, they leave what's baked into the negative on the 4K transfer if it's restored properly. Unlike Cameron, he's notorious for wanting his movies to look modern, and he hates grain. And so like he'll go in and just use some grain management. And I guess what he did with True Lies and The Abyss, where he used the AI technology to kind of clean up the image, and because he didn't want any specks or debris in the image, he wanted it clean. But it's like the problem with that is that if you smooth out, you can't just smooth out one area. When you start smoothing it out or using grain management, it ruins the entire frame, the entire image, the entire section. So then things start looking very waxy and smooth out.
It was like when we all first got our HD TVs and the presets were sort of whack. All of a sudden, like you put in The Godfather and you're like, why does this look like a telenovela?
Right, exactly. And I think studios are starting to learn that we want the grain. We want the how it would look if you watched it on the film. If you watched it through the negative, how would it look in the theater. We don't specifically want it to be 100% clean and clear. We want that extra film grain and that grit to give us that filmic appearance. And that's why I love places like these boutique labels, because they really do their best to maintain that look. Like Vinegar Syndrome and Severin. And unlike major studios where, it's more than I can say for major studios where I don't know what it is. They tend to think that consumers don't want, the consumers want a crystal clear, clean picture, but then they have to manipulate it, and then it ruins the picture where it looks like a waxy mess. And
Yeah, it's funny. I got the True Lies 4K. I haven't thrown it in yet. Now I'm going to be extra interested to see what the image looks like.
so I'll tell you, I did a DVD because that's all we had, 4K
Right.
comparison, and I got raked over the coals with that one. People slammed me, man. If you go look at my video, look in the comments. I mean, it was just, they were chewing me out. And the reason being is because I did not give it a horrible review. I explained why it looks the way it looks. I explained how, yeah, certain frames do look waxy, but it's not through the whole film. There's still some grain in it. So it's not a total disaster. I gave it the transfer a 3.5 out of 5, which I thought was fair. But boy, man, people just raked me over the coals on that review. It's just like, I guess that, but my point is overall, no matter how you think it looks, it looks better than, NTSC analog DVD, no matter what.
Mhm.
So I mean, my point was kind of like, be happy with what you have. But would I've preferred to have the film grain and how it originally looked? Of course, but we don't. So no sense in, spiraling out of control, cussing Cameron out for it. So with your career, how did you get into acting? Was it something you always wanted to do?
Always, since I was little. But my favorite thing in the world was, to laugh. So I was like, I want to be like a comedian or a comic actor. And I was like, how do you do that? And then it just fell in place by just pursuing stand up. In New York City, I started doing open mics in 2003. And it's just like everything, just one thing led to the next, just meeting a group of comedians who were all starting out at the same time, just kind of coming up with them, finding out about an audition, somebody booked a job, casting people, they want to see somebody comes to a show. It's funny, I remember talking about this with Pete Holmes, and he, him and I, we've worked together for years and known each other forever. And we were talking about when young actors would ask us for advice, and we would always be like, we're the worst people to ask for advice, because I don't know. I only know what happened to me, and it's just like, do a set somewhere and hope somebody's in the crowd, and then they book you on a show. I mean, it's just it's just a lot of hard work and dumb luck,
Well, it's kind of like back in the early 90s with like Seinfeld, Tim Allen, where, every stand-up comedian was getting their own TV show. Sitcom, it seemed like.
Dude, when I did the Just for Laughs New Faces in Montreal, like the big comedy festival, and it was 2007. I did New Faces, and it was one of the lousiest experiences of my life. Everybody that I talked to at like the after parties, they were always like, what are you here doing? I was like, oh, New Faces. And they're like, oh man, are you here like 2-3 years too late? Some people were like, man, are you here 1 year too late?
Oh man.
I mean, it was wild that like people were like, oh man, I remember in the 90s, everybody who got just booked for New Faces got a development deal.
Right.
And when I was there, I was like, I was only one of like 2 comics who didn't already have a manager or an agent. yeah, it was like, because everybody else was already like working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful. It was awful. But like hearing that, especially too, and now looking back, this was in this odd down period of stand up because it was just about to blow up again. Because then in like in '08, after this is what I always figured, after like the housing crisis and a bunch of people lost their jobs. I remember Nate Craig was like, he's like, yeah, it was when all those people lost their jobs because they went in to do stand up because you didn't have to buy a guitar.
Yeah,
And so,
right.
and then all of a sudden stand up blew up again, you know.
Yeah, because it was down for a while, for a few years. It
Dude,
was pretty.
When I started doing stand up, it was like nerdy. That it was like it's almost like when Weird Al Yankovic comes out with an album now, everybody is, you know, it's the second coming. But it's like, I remember when listening to Weird Al was the same as, you know, Dungeons. Everything's cool now. Like Dungeons and Dragons. Star Trek is still the one thing that's still on the outlier, you know?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty funny when you think about when we were growing up as a kid. I think we're around the same age. I was born in '78.
Yeah, 79.
Okay. Yeah, it's like growing up in the mid '80s to the '90s. It's like you say, just like you said, Weird Al comes out of the CD. It's like I was almost embarrassed to say that I owned it.
Yeah.
And you're embarrassed to say that you liked, like I love film scores. I had a ton of soundtracks, like the actual score, not the music inspired, but the actual score from composers. And I was afraid to reveal that I was a closeted, you know, film score fan.
Yeah. That's the height of geekdom.
Right. And now it's like, it's popular now. All that is popular now. It's just so weird. It's so strange to me. I was actually watching an interview with Weird Al the other night, and he was talking a little bit about that. I forgot what podcast it was on, but he was talking a little bit about that. He was like, it's so strange to him because even him as the artist performing this, he felt like he had to almost hide who he was because everybody would make fun of him, that he's a nerd, that he's, you know, who he is. Yeah. And now, just as what we were talking about, now he doesn't, he's free. He's like, I'm out of the closet. I'm free.
A beloved elder statesman.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this question. I don't know if you've been asked this before, but I know other comedians have been asked this. The state of comedy today. Mm-hmm. I've been told that a lot of people would tell me, you know, that you can't make jokes like you used to. How I think about it is, well, you can, but you have to do it differently. You have to approach the material differently than you would have 10, 15 years ago. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the world is different. The country's certainly different. The culture has shifted. I think that look, you can, people are like, oh, you can't joke about that anymore. You can do whatever you want. Right. Things have always been offensive. There have always been, you know, marginalized groups who are like, that's not cool to say. It's just information moves much faster now, and everyone has a voice and a platform. I mean, it's like it's just the matter of effort. Like you used to have to write a letter. Like you used to have to try to figure out what is the address of this studio or TV station or radio station. You know, what is the phone number? Like, you used to have to call. You used to have to call. Like you used to have to put in work. Now it's like people are, you know, it's not that people are more easily offended. It's that they are more easily hurt. So it's like there's still, I mean, it's like, you know, when Andrew Dice Clay was at the height of his, you know, career, you would see like a less than 45-second story on like the news, and it was like, you know, a gay rights group was protesting in front of the Andrew Dice Clay concert, and have like a 2-second like a guy just being like, what he says is terrible, you know, people should be upset about this. and then it's on to, Tom with the weather. It's just it was, because information always moved quickly, even in newspaper and TV, but it was like the turnover now is preposterous.
Well, the social media,
social media. I mean, it's just,
and it's like one person says, Matt McCarthy, I can't believe he said this in his stand-up, and they may have like a little clip, and then all of a sudden it just spirals out of control and snowballs on social media, and everyone is like, I can't believe he said what he said. How could he say that? And I've noticed a lot of times too is when they show clips, it's completely out of context of the joke, and
right.
They don't show the they show the punchline. They don't show the startup to the punchline. And
I mean, we're going back 60 years now, when it's like Lenny Bruce was literally hauled into court and had to, like, when he talked about it, he was like, he's not even defending his jokes. He's now having to defend his act that a cop went to a judge and did his act. And he's just like, the guy's just reading all these filthy words. And it's just like, no, this is not what my act was. There's no context. There's no joke. There's no rhythm. There's no delivery.
Right. Exactly.
No, I mean, I think that it was, I think comedy's better now. I think comedy's better now than it ever has been. And like, there's certainly movies that you watch and you're like, oh, that didn't age well.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it was inappropriate then,
Right.
I mean, there was certainly a, the shift has been away from, oh, well, they're just joking around. It's like, it's no, I think we've just broadened our perspective of, well, maybe you shouldn't be joking around about that. There's what's the joke other than just pointing out this person's different,
Well, and that's the difference is like, if you're a good comedian and hone your skills, you're not just saying things for shock value. There's a point to what you're saying. Anthony Jeselnik, I've met him a couple times, and I mean, he's completely different in real life than he is on stage.
Oh, yeah,
100%. But I mean, that's the joke in itself, is how his stage performance compared to how he is in real life. But what's funny is, like, he will say that sometimes he has said things that people are hurt over and he feels really bad about it. But at the same time, that's comedy, but you don't want to do it maliciously. You don't want to just say, random stuff for shock value. As I said, there has to be a reason for it, a point to it.
That's the skill. Like somebody like Anthony, it's like the skill, the art of what he's doing isn't it funny that somebody would say something like this? Like, it's outrageous that anybody would think this thought, let alone say it out loud.
Right.
Exactly. and that's the tough thing, because you will get people laughing for the wrong reason, or you attract a certain type of person. It's like, it's like the Family Guy thing, where, like, Family Guy is a very smart show, and they do a lot of that pushing, like, good taste, but then that attracts a lot of the audience. Doesn't, it's like Dave Chappelle talked about people laughing for the wrong reason,
right?
And it's like, I mean, George Carlin is always going to be the best example, because he just, his stuff now, 30 years after he performed it, is still postmodern and deconstructing the form. I mean, some of the more pedestrian stuff comes off as very hack, but it's not because of George. It's just because of time and because of all the hacks that ripped off George,
Yeah.
Whereas when he's breaking apart words, or like slurs, or just, stuff you're not supposed to say, it's like he's doing it in such a skillful way that where his heart is, and you're still laughing.
Right. Exactly. And or when he talks about the state of politics and the state of the world, And a lot of his stuff from 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago still resonates today. It's still
Yeah.
true today.
Even more so. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I look, and the fact is there's an audience for whatever type of humor you want to do. Even the people who are malicious, who are saying things for the wrong reason. There's an audience who will happily, fill a theater to go see that. So it's just there's no, there's plenty of room for everyone in comedy, both in the best way and the worst way. I think the thing that's hurting stand-up comedy now is Instagram, because comics only post clips of crowd work.
I was just going to talk about that. Yeah.
And then people show up to shows and then they think, oh, that's what stand-up is. We're not just supposed to sit here and listen and enjoy. We're a part of the show too. And I'm like, oh God, no, that's
right.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I've noticed that more and more comedians are posting crowd work, and it looks like that's their entire act. And Matt Rife, he blew up doing that by showing the crowd work.
Right.
And then I saw an interview with him, and he's like, that's only a small percentage of my stand-up routine. You're not seeing the entire, show. You're just seeing that small percentage of what I do. But now I think it's kind of, I think that people are going to see him now for the crowd work. And so I think he's kind of leaning more into that, because that's why people are seeing it, which isn't anything wrong with it. But, that's not what people now, like what you said, think they can go to a comedy show and start heckling the
yeah, they don't even think
stage.
it's heckling. They're just like, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And then they expect you to play along with it. And, it's kind of like, so let me ask you, have you ever been heckled, and how did you deal with it?
Oh God. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I've been at this thing for like 20 years. So, I mean, I can handle myself on stage, and it's just, it's all the audience wants is to feel safe and to feel like you're in control. And it's easy. And most people, the vast majority of people in the audience, just want to sit there and listen. They don't want to, even if they think that crowd work is what stand-up comedy is, they just want to sit there and listen. They just want to watch the show. But I mean, it's usually the 98% of the audience is looking to you to tell these people to stop talking or stop drawing focus to themselves. I mean, really, 10 times out of 10, alcohol is the factor,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now one thing that I noticed too is but like you said, sometimes comedy is getting better. One way this is getting better is also like your show. You have it, is it simultaneously cast online while you're doing the show?
Right.
Or is it pre-recorded?
No, it'll go out live, and then it'll be available for a week, that people can still grab a hold of it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I love is you're not just in this one performance that only maybe 100 people, 200 people see, if that. Now you have the whole world is in your hands. You can watch your stand-up routine live as it's happening, which is awesome. I love that. And because now you got viewers that find you from other states that are watching you and become fans of your comedy routine. It's just great. But I think I don't think that comedy, because a lot of people were saying that comedy was dead for a couple years now, and I never really believed that. Well, mainly because of all the Me Too movement and all that stuff. You can't say these things anymore. And then I noticed though that a lot of people still think it's hilarious, some of the jokes. for instance, movies. For instance, The Jerk, one of my all-time favorite comedies.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff in there, and I was trying to get a friend of mine to watch it. I'm like, you're going to laugh, trust me. He's like, I don't know about this. Is it cringy? Is there some really cringy stuff in there? I'm like, well, you got to remember, this is made in like 1980. You got to take that into account when you watch a comedy. It was the time period it was made in. And but yeah, he enjoyed it. He thought it was one of the funniest movies he's seen in a long time. And so I've had people say, well, can you make The Hangover today? Well, yeah, you can. I mean, you just have to adapt to the times we're in, more so.
Yeah. I mean, it's more like 16 Candles. It's like there's no, I trust me. 16 Candles comes out. There were Asian Americans who watched that and were deeply disappointed and offended.
Mm-hmm.
There were 16 Candle comes out. There were women who watched it and were like, yeah, he like, because Michael Anthony Hall, the nerd, wakes up in the car next to the prom queen.
Yeah.
And they've both been blacked out. She's been blacked out and hauled around. And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we did it. And it's like, yeah, that's an assault. There's no punchline to this.
Right. If I remember correctly too, I think he found, if I remember right, he found a pair of panties in the car as well. I think. And
Revenge of the Nerds. It's like,
Revenge.
No,
yeah.
this is American Pie. It's like you're violating these other human beings. I understand they're hot and you're hard up, but this is what you're doing is wrong, and I can't go on this journey with you. Like those things were offensive and incorrect then, and there were plenty of people that what's changing is there's less people going, oh, lighten up. It's the people who watch that movie like, oh, it's just a movie, who are now being like, oh no, this is you're right, this is not cool to put something in this. This is not entertainment, and it's not necessary. It's like the whole selling point of the movie Porky's is they're spying on the girls in the locker room or in the showers, really.
Shower, yeah.
And it's like, this is a like Porky's is such a joyless movie, really, when you watch it. It's actually fascinating how like it's ironic that it is called Porky's, because this is just a fascinating, like, this is a movie by and for pigs. This is just an absolute wretched piece of dreck.
Right. Man, I haven't seen that movie in I don't know how long. I haven't seen it in so long. John Pimmel, hey John, thanks for joining us. Says those films like 16 Candles, Oh Boy, Mature, and 2020s. And 2020s does cringe as I see them now. Yeah, I mean, it's just the time period. That's really what it comes down to, is the time period they were made and time period we're in now. Things change, the climate of people's, what's acceptable, what's not has changed. Like exactly like you said, people used to say, oh, it's just a movie. It's not going to hurt you. Sticks and stones. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And now people are saying, well, no, this is offensive and it's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. And
yeah, I mean, you cut to 100 years ago, not just the way that African Americans were portrayed in films. It was like there was just blackface was just part of entertainment. And it's like you can read quotes. I forget the name of the author, but he wrote a book about outrage culture, and he was on Dana Gould's podcast, the Dana Gould Hour, and he's like, let me read you these quotes. And it's comedy is dead. Oh, you can't joke about anything anymore. but all, and it's like these sound, this is, comedians talking now, right? No, these are quotes from the 1950s by like Groucho Marx, and they're specifically talking about, like, I think the Groucho quote was specifically about blackface. It's like, oh, you can't do anything anymore. Everybody's going to be offended. It's like, you're just an out of touch old man. That's all that's happening.
Yeah. The show is called Physical Media Coast to Coast. So I thought I think I should put out some physical media to show. I asked you before the show, do you have anything that you would like to show the folks out there?
Well, I mean, the things that I've been watching this week are still on my desk because you got to keep them in with arm's reach. It was the anniversary of Woodstock, so of course I got to watch my Woodstock VHS. This is hilarious to watch because you want to talk about some god awful scan and pan is this VHS tape, because it's got Woodstock the movie has a remarkable like framing device where like half the time that it's like a split screen.
Yeah,
this one, it's like it starts off and I'm like, man, it's squished. Like at first I put it on, the 16:9 TV I have up there, and I was like, oh, I don't even have to put it, because I don't mind the bars on the side, especially when I'm watching something 4:3 on the VCR. I was like, oh, I don't even have to, like, I can keep it in full size because and then I was like, wait a second, that means they squished it in. So then I put it in, the 4:3. I'm like, they've just squashed this gorgeous movie like that. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine watching this 30 years ago on a regular TV. And then when it gets into the split screen stuff, like the De Palma type framing, it's abysmal. And then it's squished again, but then they're still panning back and forth. So sometimes it's just in the middle and you're missing half of both things. And then other times it pans over and now you've missed half the movie entirely. It's absolutely hilarious.
Man, yeah. Well, I remember some De Palma movies I saw on beta or VHS, and they did the same thing. That pan and scan, they squish it, pan scan, and then when, like you said, they just do the split screen, and you're like missing half the movie. It goes back and forth, scans back and forth. I mean, I'm hoping that they put that out on a 4K. That would be great on a 4K.
I would love that because the music itself. I mean, I have never been a huge fan of Flashdance, but that is maybe top of my list favorite 4K movies because it looks so gorgeous. But then once the sound comes through, like if you got the sound bar and the subwoofer, it's unbelievable. I'm like, I recommend it. Like Pat Walsh, the other host of We'll See You in Hell, huge 4K guy, and he's like, nah, I've never really been a fan of that movie. I'm like, me neither. But the 4K, you have to get into it. You'll love it.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, if you watch it on a home theater like I have, I've got the 7.1, and it's like, oh man, the theme song, and then She's a Maniac, song and everything. It's just unbelievable. The sound design on that 4K. Yeah, I agree with you. It was one of my top. It came out last year, I think, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
It was one of my top ones of last year. I got this in yesterday, which about time they put this on Blu-ray, because Succession, the complete series.
Oh, beautiful.
So, and it's cool too. It comes this little O-ring or slip cover, whatever you want to call it. And when they originally released this, I think it was just on DVD, and I was like, "Why the hell are they just putting this on DVD?" It was HBO's biggest show, won every Emmy. Why is this on DVD? So finally, we got it on Blu-ray now, and HBO sent this to me a couple days ago, out next Tuesday. So I can't wait to dive into that and check
my next one. My favorite sub-label absolutely right now is Kino Cult, and they have like 4 or 5 coming out next week, which includes, I watched this with my son, William Shatner in Kingdom of the Spiders.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I love the artwork on that too. That artwork is so good.
The artwork's fantastic. The interior cover too. You've got 2 different covers on the inside, but I love this one of Shatner.
Yeah, and then you've got that one there.
This one is so great because it's such a this is a Svengoolie movie, but it's got, because Kino, I don't think anybody does commentary tracks better than Kino. I think that they have completely outdone Criterion at their own game.
Well, what I love is the film historian commentaries.
It's like this greater context of everything that's going on and who's in it and why. I'm going to wind up watching this movie 4 times. There's 3 commentary tracks on Kingdom of the Spiders.
Oh wow! It's got one from the director and the cinematographer.
What's great is they have an interview with Tiffany Bowling. Not sure how to pronounce it. She's the female lead. She's the she's not a spider expert. Why do they call her in? She's a venom expert, I guess. I don't know.
Expert.
The cow dies and they bring her in and she's like, it got bit by a spider.
Yeah.
They talk with her and it's obvious they had just done the commentary because she's still in the voiceover studio. She's just sitting there at the table.
Oh.
They ask her, they talk to her for maybe like a 5-8 minute interview. They ask her about her experience. The first thing she says, this was not the question asked. The first thing she says is, well, it was weird. William Shatner was hitting on me the entire time, and his wife was there on the shoot, so it was a little awkward. And I'm like, oh, this is the best.
Okay. Yeah, I love the Kino Colts line. I mean, Empire of the Ants.
Oh, hell yeah.
Frogs. Yep. I mean, these were stuff that like I remember back in the 80s, we grew up in Oregon, like Portland, Oregon area. Mm-hmm. And ABC Channel 2 would have the Friday night or Saturday late night movie, midnight, 1 o'clock, whatever. And they would always show movies like this. And so my dad would record them. And then the next day, me and my brother, Simon, we would sit with our dad and just watch these movies. And it was the best, just the best.
It's the greatest. Those ones you just mentioned. And then Food of the Gods is also coming out with this bunch. These were all, they're starting to get into titles that are from my favorite DVD collection. I'm maybe like 7 shy of having the full set, is the MGM Midnight Movies.
Oh yeah.
Which had these, it has this, this banner on the top, the Midnight Movies.
I remember that. Yeah.
These are my absolute favorite.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just great. Let's see. John Pimmel says, Paul, did you show Devil Times 5? Vinegar Syndrome sent you. I was just about to. Right here. Boom. Devil Times 5. They didn't send me one with the O-ring, though, which was, I was hoping they would, but they didn't. I saw that. Have you seen this? Devil Times 5?
No.
It is, when was it made? 74, yeah. So 70s is my favorite decade of film. I loved the 70s. They took they had balls back then in Hollywood in the 70s, and they took huge risks, and they weren't afraid to show kids in danger, things like that. And but this is one of those movies where it's like the kids torment the adults type movie. So when I say it's a good movie, probably not, but it's a fun movie.
Right.
But whenever I see movies like this on 4K, I'm like, yeah, this proves physical media isn't dead. That they put something like this on 4K. I mean, come on,
I mean, I mean, better than anybody. It'll never die. It's just going to become like nothing has ever died. They're still making pinball machines. You know, I mean, nothing ever goes away. It just becomes a narrower market. It's just not going to be this mass-produced glut of crap.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what's happening now, I mean, I've said this before on other shows, but I think the boutique labels are definitely saving physical media more. I mean, major studios, anymore, they look at one thing, and that is, how much money can I make off of this? Are we going to produce a profit? And so that's why they focus so hard on streaming for a few years, because it's basically 100% profit. There's no middleman. And
I remember because I reach out to everybody, about, hey, can you send me a copy of this, a copy of that? I'll review it. The one that I was like, oh, they're done. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they're sending something to somebody, but they're done with me, is Sony. And I'd sent a email, and I was like, hey, I don't see a link to request a copy of this. And they were like, oh yeah, no, we're only going to be sending it to magazines and news shows, and which was hilarious to me, because I'm like, well, good luck finding a magazine. But in the back of my head, I'm like, is it that you're not going to be sending them out to people, or is it because like 2,000 people just got fired from the physical media department at Sony?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, because I was with Sony as well, and I started noticing that for the past couple press releases, they would have the request title, request product, or whatever. They stopped having that button there. And so I reached out to them, and I reached out to actually a couple of different reps, and I asked them about that. And one rep basically told me the same thing you did. But then another girl was a little bit more transparent on things. And she said that what's happened is that we started letting more and more people receive promo copies to review, and they're not reviewing them. So they're basically just sending them movies, and then they're not getting anything in return. The people they're sent to are not reviewing them. And so they decided that they're going to focus more on big name reviewers, outlets like blu-ray.com, the digital bits, home theater, sites, and then like big time YouTubers or influencers. She said, basically, send me your information and then we'll put you on a list. The old saying, put you on the list.
Yeah.
And then and we'll see, so basically it's kind of like a toss-up, who we're going to send it to. Surprisingly though, I did receive what was it? I forgot what the title was. I did receive something from Sony. Do I have it in front of me? I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember what it was. But I did receive something new from Sony that
was the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
No. It wasn't that. It was
because I got sent in the mail. I didn't even ask for it, and I was
really,
like, oh, well, which struck me as odd, because I was like, oh, was this movie like not well received that nobody wanted a copy of it to review?
Yeah. So, well, we'll just give it to Matt.
Because I mean, honestly, like I was like, oh, well, this is a bummer. So I kind of like, I got the email for like the 4K of America movie, and I replied, and I was just like, look, I'm begging you. If you send me this, I will make a video about it every day. Like right. This is not just an important film to me. It's part of the way that I speak every day.
Right.
But I did kind of go through the list of like emails I had gotten, and I was like, well, I mean, the sad truth is they don't actually have anything that I'm dying to get a hold of anyway,
I found it right here. This is what they sent me out of the blue. The Richard Pryor Live from Sunset Strip.
Okay.
And I didn't even request this. They just sent it to me. So I had no idea what I was getting. And I think this is out September 10th, if I remember correctly.
It is. So I think that's Paramount though.
No, Sony.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Sony.
Oh, it's Columbia. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was surprised by that, because basically they were telling me, the old saying, we'll keep you in mind. We'll put you on a list. I'm like, yeah, sure. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly get this. So, I don't know. Cross your fingers. You may get something.
I mean, talk about like that concert film. Perfect example of a guy who is if you're just going to pull lines or quotes, it's like, well, you can't do that anymore. And it's like, no. If you watch that full hour, you're seeing a man bare his soul. Mm-hmm. There's like Richard will always be the greatest. He'll always be better than Carlin.
Yeah.
Because
I think so too.
Carlin never talked about himself on stage. He talked about his point of view. He talked about what he thought about the world, the big world, the little world, words, you know, the things that he loved. But like George Carlin, almost killed his wife one night because they were both blacked out and like on coke. You know, he never talked about that. Like Richard, like there's a chunk where Richard is talking about lighting himself on fire because he's smoking. I was
just going to
crack.
say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's like he talked at length about heartache and being humiliated in relationships and humiliated in life and the black experience and getting pulled over by the police and just like growing up in brothels and just, you know, I mean, the man, he held nothing back. That's why Richard will always be the greatest.
Yeah, he was fully transparent. He wasn't ashamed. I mean, the way he dealt with it was therapy to him. That's the way he dealt with any kind of trauma in his life is through the comedy. And he wasn't afraid to tell people, hey, this is what happened. This is what I had to deal with. But, you know, then he makes, you know, a punchline or a joke of it. But at the same time, it's also so real. I remember seeing that, what was it? It was an interview I saw of somebody. It was, I forgot who the comedian was, but he was talking about that show. And he said that, what was it? I think he was either in the audience or he saw it somewhere, but he said that there's a moment in that show where he says something and people, it was just quiet. You could hear a pin drop,
right?
Because he was bearing his soul out to the audience. And he said, and to the point where he said it almost ruined the show because it's a comedy show. So how do you go from that to comedy? But Richard made it work. He's an absolute pro.
I mean, talking about ahead of his time. I mean, because up until that point, it's like, you know, the standard bearer was Rodney Dangerfield, where it's just like, this is my character, these are the jokes, and you want to just talk on the page. You read a transcript of Rodney Dangerfield's act and a transcript of Richard Pryor's. There's no question who's funnier.
Right.
You watch the performance, it's like they are not just different artists, they're doing different forms of art. And talk about ahead of his time, what with, you know, so much of comedy specials now have done the kind of, you know, one person show Nanette thing of here's some jokes, but it's tied together with this deep point, you know, something a little more poignant. Richard, was it everybody September 10th, pick that up. That's what Richard was doing. Yeah, guys, definitely. I mean, I can't wait I haven't watched it yet. I can't wait to see what they did on the 4K. And I mean, I probably haven't seen this in 20 years. So I can't wait to rewatch this. Yeah. Did you have something else you wanted to show? You know what I did, but I realized it's in the other room. I got the 4K from Arrow for The Woman. You know that movie? Yeah. Man, I haven't seen it, but I know about it. Yeah. I watched it last night. That is not for everybody. To put it lightly. To put it lightly. I mean, the basic plot, really giving nothing away because it gets going pretty quick, is there is a feral woman living in the woods that a hunter comes across, and he grabs her and ties her up in the family barn, basically, or in the cellar, with the intention of civilizing her, or I don't know what. Yeah, civilizing her. But my God, it is a fascinating, ugly movie about just, you know, the patriarchy and you know, the family dynamic and men and women and violence, and my God, is it a trip. Wow. And that's on 4K now, right? And that's on 4K now, and it comes with the bonus disc is apparently The Woman is a sequel to, I want to
Oh,
say
really?
the first film is called The Offspring, which I didn't even know
Huh.
this. So yeah, so that's included as well. I think that's a short film, but
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't watched that yet. But yeah, I watched The Woman last night, and I was like, holy Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, and then is that out now?
That is out Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to see that. I requested it, but I'm not sure if they're sending it to me or not. But I did get Wrath of the, what is it? When Titans Rule the World.
Oh
Which,
yeah.
so I was so disappointed because that artwork made it look like, when they first announced it, the artwork made it look like they included the original. And
Oh my God, right.
I was like, oh dude, this is awesome. They're gonna have all three movies. And then you look at the, the information, and it's just the remake and then the remake sequel. So that was a little disappointing. But I think Warner Brothers is saving that for themselves to release instead of having Arrow do it.
I hope so, yeah.
But
because I am such a mark for Ray Harryhausen and the
Mhm.
original Clash of the Titans. But our son is 8, he's almost 9, and there are just certain movies he'll appreciate some of that clunkier stop motion animation when he's a little bit older.
yeah,
But as for right now, I was like, because I never even watched the remake, because I was like, why would I watch?
why would you?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll go watch, if I want to watch Clash of the Titans, I'll watch Clash of the Titans.
Right.
But so I put on the 2010 remake,
Something. Yeah.
and watching it with my son through his eyes, I'm like, this is just the best. I mean, it ticks all the boxes. It looks great. This is how old we're gonna feel now. My son, he goes, what year did this movie come out? I go, 2010. He goes, wow, that old?
No.
The effects look so good.
That old. What are you talking? It's crazy to think about.
I know, but it's great. They're fighting giant scorpions, and you got Medusa, and my son keeps looking at me. He's like, "Oh, Medusa," and then
nice.
the Kraken gets released. I mean, it was like what you were just talking about with your dad and your brother, where it's just like, man, we're sitting on the couch, we're watching this adventure, and he's like,
it's the greatest.
He's like, "Oh, Dad, this weekend we should watch the second one."
Have you watched the second one yet?
Not yet, no.
I actually prefer the second one. I like the second one. It's fun. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a great movie or anything, but
Sure.
I liked it better. I thought it was better directed. The action scenes were better. It's shorter too. I think it's only like an hour and 30.
That's how long movies are supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, I think the remake was almost 2 hours. But yeah, I actually preferred the Wrath of Titans better than that remake. But speaking of Ray Harryhausen and old school makeup effects and effects, I got this in The Artist Who Changed the World, Making of Apes. So this is a documentary about the makeup artist John Chambers and Tom Berman, who worked on the effects for Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh wow!
So all the makeup effects. Yeah, I saw this one. I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this. I haven't seen it yet. I just got it, but I cannot wait to dive into this. And it's like an hour and 20 minutes, so not too long. But yeah, I can't wait. I love documentaries like this.
Well, I mean, on that note, I mentioned it before. I didn't ask anybody to send me this. It just showed up. The Steelbook of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Kingdom.
This was great. This was another one. My wife was like, "Nah, you two have fun." And me and my son, we went and saw it, and it was awesome. We sat in the front row.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, "Oh, we don't like sitting in the front row." I go, No. Your mother doesn't like sitting in the front row. I like sitting in the front. I'm like, trust me, we're going to have a great time. We sat in the front and just like took it in. So this is 4K Blu-ray, and it's got great artwork on it. I don't want to give away my digital code.
I heard that. Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard that I don't know if this is true, but someone told me that they included like the full movie without the effects in it.
Yeah,
So,
apparently there is, what do they call it? The raw cut?
Yeah.
It has the theatrical version, and then inside the lens, the raw cut version. I don't have my glasses, and I'll be the first one to say it. They are making this print smaller and smaller each year.
Or maybe our eyesight's getting worse and worse.
But yeah, it's a full-length alternative cut.
Yeah.
Oh, and you'll like this. It has split screen comparisons.
Oh, really?
It's like they made this just for you.
That's kind of cool.
Split screen compares the final cut with an unfinished VFX version with optimized audio commentary by Wes Ball, Dan Zimmerman, and Eric Winquist. There you go.
That's cool. Talk about a rarity.
I mean, that's a very unique bonus feature.
Right. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, right? The feature length of it? No way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, or they do like a 10-minute featurette.
Yeah.
Not the whole movie.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, look, this was before. Now this is what it is now.
Yeah. That's cool. And who released that? Fox?
This is,
I guess, Disney now?
Yeah, 20th Century Fox.
Cool.
Just like The Doors said.
Yeah, I haven't I haven't seen it yet. I've been wanting to.
Oh, it's great. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick it up next week. Yeah. I think we're going to wrap this up. Thanks so much, man, for coming on. It was a blast talking to you.
I love it. And, we're cut from the same cloth, brother.
And let me see if I can do this here. I wanted to share the screen here of hold on here. Let me see here. Which one is it? I think it's this one. Is that working there? There we go.
Oh,
so
yeah,
is this the Elysium? Yeah. I think this is older because that says Wednesday, April 17th.
Okay, yeah, that's the last one we did. This week's is tomorrow, August 24th, Saturday, 7 p.m. That's Pacific time. If you're in the SoCal area, Los Angeles, come on out. And if not, you can stream it. And even if you can't watch the stream live, it'll be available for a full week. You can dig into it. And check me out on all forms of social media at McCarthy Redhead. The info is in the bio. On my
and I'll leave a description. In the description of this video, I'll put the links in there too. And this is something that Louis C.K. is doing too. He's
is he streaming his shows?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's live, but he restreams it afterwards, after his stand-up routine, and then it's on there for like a week or something. And then after that, then you can buy it, I think. What's cool too is like it's reasonably cheap, man. It's like $20 and you can get all of his stand-up shows.
Oh, that's super.
And I definitely did that. I loved it. I loved it. Guys, so go follow Matt on his TikTok. Some fun videos, great videos showing mainly commercials of old videotapes, commercials that we used to pause out, right? That we didn't.
They're just so lost to time, and especially now it's like, damn, the idea that they probably spent $300,000 on this commercial shoot is just wild.
Right. Yeah, I mean, talk about time capsule. I mean, it's just crazy. Guys, so go follow Matt on his TikTok and go check out his show live or on the streaming. I'll put the links in the description when we're out of this video. But thanks again, Matt, for coming on. It was great talking to you. We definitely got to have you back on the show again.
Yeah, hell yeah. Thanks a lot, dude.
Fun. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time. And remember, keep physical media alive.